Hi, my name's Selena and my garden is part of the Sydney Edible Garden Trail. It's called Permanora and love to welcome you either virtually or physically at some point. We're based on the northern beaches of Sydney, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can populate our garden in different ways. And my garden has a lot of plants which I've found on council cleanup or at the tip, and very much a part of me just picking them up when I see them. And I've got lots of bromeliads and ferns and all sorts of really interesting plants that way. And another way I've populated my garden is through my friends locally who also like to garden through our permaculture network, and also just through conversation. And we'll share cuttings, and I'll do a little video on cuttings later. But today I wanted to talk primarily about different ways of growing from seed and the different ways that you can create different growing mediums. So I grow in a very lightweight, high carbon, sort of composty, light soil, and you can sort of see it's very light there. It's not got many chunks, and it allows the seeds to have a lot of air and space, and for the water to drain through fairly quickly. And you can see here I'm filling up a whole lot of plastic cells in a plastic tub, which is your standard sort of kit that you can get at a hardware store or at a supermarket. Sometimes they sell them. And I will fill up a tray carefully with the water, the soil and the growing medium. It doesn't have to be super fancy. In fact, you can make your own, or you can buy specialized seed raising mix, or you can generally use most sort of garden soil products to do it, as long as it's not too water absorbent. You want to just have it light so that the seeds don't go moldy. So you can see that I've filled that tray up quite nicely and quite flat. Another way I do this is with seeds. You can often grow plants that the roots don't like to be disturbed on, and what I do is I grow them in either a newspaper pot or a toilet paper roll pot, or sometimes egg cartons. But I just cut my toilet paper rolls in half and I place them in a box, as you can see, and then I will again fill each little one up with soil to the top very loosely. I don't press the soil down, but what I will do is take and thump down a bit, and the soil will settle down. You don't want to compress it down too much, otherwise the roots can't grow in the medium. So I'll fill up these little pots here, and it's quite easy to do. And then when it comes to planting, you just plant the whole thing in, including the cardboard, which will break down over time. So they fill up nicely. I've got some I know exactly what I'm going to grow in these little pots today, and there's some seeds that I've been saving for a while. We're having this really incredibly warm, humid end of summer, beginning of autumn, which is fantastic for growing a lot of the tropical beans, which I'll be planting into those ones. Now the other way that I like to use is to create little pots out of newspaper. And yeah, our local paper's has gone the way of most local news media these days and disappeared. But I say this is the Sun Herald. So that small format media, a glass bottle, cut this into thirds, 3 layers of paper, and I work out how deep I want the pots. About 5 centimeters deep in this case. I will wrap them. A wine bottle is great. In this instance, I'm using a little soda glass recyclable bottle. So wrap that around, fold it in at the end, and then you get this nice little tub, which you can fill up very nicely with water. Now I find these are particularly good for growing things like tomatoes and also the brassicas and parsley. Now what I've discovered is, because I've used a thinner pot than I normally, than the thinner jar than I normally use, I think probably only need 2 layers because I'm going around enough. So you can experiment with what works with you and what size bottle you're using as your mold. You can actually buy really fancy hand-turned wooden molds for this, but I just think, you know, why not use something that's readily available at home? So I'm upcycling or recycling or repurposing an existing piece of asset into something that's very useful. So you can see here I'm making those nice pots. They're a bit deeper and I can put seeds into them. So where do I get my seeds? And what do I, when do I plant what? I've got a great website that I subscribe to called Gardenate, and it sends me an email every month. I put in where I live and what zone I'm working in, and it will send me a list of relevant seeds to be planting. Now I've got some beans that I've harvested from my own garden and some pumpkin seeds, and I'll do a little video on how to get seeds from different types of sources in the garden, but I'll be planting those today. And I'm also going to be planting some ginger and some turmeric. Now the ginger and turmeric has come out of my own garden, but I originally got this ginger and turmeric from my local organic market. And so I've got both white and yellow turmeric. I've left them until they started to get a sprout. And these longer pots are absolutely perfect for putting that turmeric into to grow a bit stronger and put up some leaves before I put them into a larger pot, and then I'll transfer them to the garden when they're mature enough. So that's another great way to grow from roots. This is a ginger and this is the turmeric. Lovely tasty root vegetables which are great to have in the garden for juicing and cooking, and they're also really beautiful and have fragrant leaves, which is nice to brush past. With my beans I have here that I've picked earlier from and saved and dried, I have a chopstick. I've got a pointy end for small seeds and a fat end for fat seeds, and I tend to plant these by making a little hole in the cell. That's the right size. Go like this. But these are seeds that I've saved from my own garden, but I often will swap seeds from my garden with seeds from friends' gardens so that we have different useful plants growing in different locations, which helps preserve them, but also having different sources, which creates a nice healthy population, and you know, keeps it all within the community, and we don't have to buy seeds out. We know this particular plant works well in this local climate, so those guys have gone in really easily. And I also buy my seeds from different sellers. I try and always buy open pollinated and organic, but you don't have to, and often I end up with a whole lot of seeds that I might have forgotten about or not planted out that are out of date, and I tend to every year I'm not going to use pop them all into a box, and at the end of winter I'll just throw them and scatter them around the garden and see what pops up, which is kind of fun. So they're different ways that you can get different plants into your garden, through seeds, through cuttings, through findings. You don't have to go to a nursery to buy these things. If you don't want a whole packet of pumpkin seeds, you might find a friend that might want to share them with you, or you might want 3 different types of pumpkins and you've got 3 gardens, so you all buy one each and you share the cost of the seeds for initially setting up. But one thing that I can tell you that when you're growing things in your garden, you love sharing the fact that they're growing with friends, and the sense of achievement when you've actually got something big enough to take a cutting from and share, or it's doing well enough to share, is a really good thing for a gardener. So I hope by showing you a few of these methods, I've shown you some really easy ways of planting your seeds, some sustainable ways of creating plantable pots so you don't have to disturb the roots. But one of the other things is, how do you know what you've planted where? It's really good to write your name, write the name of what you're planting on something and then put it in there. Paddle pop sticks are great. What I find is that I can recycle these over and over and over. But another great way of having plant tags that are pretty permanent is to get an old milk bottle carton and cut it up, the plastic ones, and these make really good plant labels, and then you can write on it with a strong permanent marker or a pencil, or what's really great are those crayon pencils, the wax pencils, which you can wipe off later and reuse and rename. But I just keep mine in a box, or sometimes put them back in the seed packet when they're done. And I've got these nice, easy to use, easy to clean, easy to reuse labels for my seeds. So there you go, lots of little tips that might help you out. Good luck with your edible garden travels, and maybe I'll see you one day in my garden or yours. Thanks.